Welcome back to Next Level Contractor and One Exam Prep. And today we've got Andrew Gertz from One Exam Prep, and we are talking about everything Georgia, specifically 2026 strategy for getting your contractor's license. We're going to go step by step. We're going to talk about the different exams. And if you're planning on doing that in 2026, I highly recommend you stay tuned till the end. So, Andrew, welcome.
Thank you. Well, happy to be here, Noah. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to get into it.
Great. So let's get right into it. We're going to be talking about step-by-step strategy, residential, light commercial in general. So let's kick it right off with the application process. I know that's what you need to do first, specifically in the state of Georgia. So give us your basic, the first, what you want to tell people about the application.
Right. So, biggest thing to know about the application is the state of Georgia will tell you it's about 52 business days to get it approved from the time you submit, right? So, what does that mean? It means two things. One, you have plenty of time to study so you're ready for the exams by the time you're approved, right? That's number one. But number two is when you submit that application, you want that thing to be spotless, perfect, the most pristine application ever, because 52 business days is a long time. Most folks doing this, you got jobs on the line, you got money on the line. You don't want, the state asking you to clarify this, telling you forgot about that. And 52 business days, which is already forever, is all of a sudden 72, and then it's 82. You don't want that. So, it gives you the time to study, but you want it to be perfect the first time, because 52 days, that's long enough.
For sure, that is a long time. What are you finding that is the most common missed item in the application? What's the bugaboo that you see?
Um, so there's two really for Georgia, Noah. The first one is the bond, right? Folks don't know how to get the bond, right? Which something at One Exam Prep we make very easy. Common misconception is the bond's expensive. It's not. It's very affordable. But folks will get tunnel vision on the application and getting the signatures for their experience, things like that, and the bond will just slip through the cracks oftentimes. Um, Other thing that commonly slips through the cracks with the Georgia application, or it doesn't slip through the cracks, but can delay it, is Georgia, you got to get those project affidavits signed and notarized. And you're counting on a third party for that. Usually someone who's your boss, right? Or was your boss, right? Someone you worked with a year ago, you got to track them down. Um, that type of thing. And that's one of the things that can make Georgia difficult for a lot of folks is, you have the experience, you're qualified for it, but maybe your boss is giving you a hard time about signing that experience affidavit, or maybe you're having the guy you worked with last year under his license, maybe he's in California now, so you're mailing it out to him, and that kind of logistical type of thing to get it signed. So those are really probably the two biggest ones, I would say.
Right, right. It makes sense. So talk about, yeah, I know, of course, you can do the application yourself. You did mention that One Exam Prep does help with the bond. They do have the insurance department there, but talk about, what you can. One Exam Prep does have an application department specifically for this process. Tell us about that experience and what is different about doing it yourself versus working with One Exam Prep here.
Right. So doing it yourself, as I mentioned, very easy to get tunnel vision and just worrying about tracking down Dave for the signature, right? Um, and then, tunnel vision on the rest of the application and forgetting the things that need to be submitted with the application. The bond, right? Your certificate of insurance, right? Making sure your business is set up properly, that type of thing. So what we do at One Exam Prep is, you know, we make it so that 52 business days doesn't turn into 72, doesn't turn into 82. Everything gets submitted complete, right? Exactly how the state wants to see it. All the T's crossed, the I's dotted, every dash included, in every place on the application. We got to put the FEIN number, your experience on your project affidavits. It's worded, it's checking off the boxes using the language that the state's looking for. And very important. One, so you don't get the delays like I mentioned, but two, you're going to have to pass the 2 open book multiple choice exams when you get approved for this thing. So when we do it for you, you have that peace of mind where you can focus, go all in instead of becoming application expert. You focus, you go all in on preparing for those exams. So the moment you get approved, you knock those exams out and get your license as fast as possible. And don't spend a minute longer earning less money than you should be, right? Because that's the other thing about the application, right? If you're doing it yourself, the time, that the money you lose with the time of becoming that applications expert to make sure it's perfect, or the time you lose with the back and forth with the state if something's wrong with it, the money you lose there, losing that time, it's significantly more. The our help with it is a fraction of the money you lose doing it yourself.
Right. Right. Okay. Great. Well, let's talk about, okay, so post the application, we're moving on to the business exam, strategy here. Tell us about the exam. I know we know it's open book, but tell us the format of it and why highlighting and tabbing is so important.
Absolutely. So whether you're doing residential basic, residential like commercial, or the full GC, the business and finance exam, open book, multiple choice exam, 50 questions, 120 minutes, one book you have, the Georgia NASCA Contractor's Guide to Business Law Project Management, third edition, right? Make sure that if you're doing residential basic, residential light commercial, or GC, you have that third edition. There's a fifth edition of that book that the HVAC, the plumbers, and the electrical guys use. If you're going for builder's license, you need third edition. They won't let you bring the fifth edition in, and it's the wrong book anyway, so it'll give you bad info. But with the open book multiple choice exam, 50 questions, 120 minutes, that's just over 2 minutes a question. So even though it's one book, right, you're not going to read this book cover to cover and memorize everything. It's a pretty user friendly book. I actually do kind of like the book, but it's still dense. It's IRS stuff and lien law stuff and bonds this and workman's comp that. It's not like fun, like interesting information. It's a lot of lawyer talk.
Mhm.
So you're not reading it cover to cover and memorizing. If you could do that, you're working for Elon Musk, and we're done with Mars. We're on to Pluto or something, because that's how good you are, right? So no, what you're doing is you're learning to recognize what keywords, what bring you to different sections of that book, which is where the highlighting and the tabbing comes in. All right, because if you recognize the keyword and oh, this is going to be my IRS tax calendar, right? Well, you got 2 minutes and some odd seconds a question. So you could lose most of that time finding the tax calendar in that book. Or if your book's tabbed and highlighted, you just take the tab that says tax calendar and you open right up to it, right? So for that exam day strategy, that efficiency of test taking, having that book tabbed and highlighted, it's invaluable. Invaluable.
Right. Now, talk about classes and exam simulators, and you mentioned 27 hours of study time on average. So just talk about your recommendation for the perfect way to study for this exam and actually pass on the first try.
Right. So perfect way to do it, pass the first try. We're talking 4 weeks, 4 nights a week, right? 3 nights a week, you're learning your study techniques, your test taking strategy, you're doing quizzes and practice tests on your own, you're working in exam simulator. That fourth night a week, you're either attending a live class or watching the recording of the previous class. You do that over 4 weeks, it's going to add up to about 27 hours. Now, what we're doing is, again, we're making you a master of referencing the book and understanding what the questions are asking and where to go in the book to find the answer to specific types of questions. Okay. It's nobody knows, we don't know. Nobody can tell you the exact questions you're going to see on the exam. But what we do know is the scope of the exam. And between our instructors and our content team, we take that scope, take that book, and we focus on the most commonly referenced pertinent information to that exam scope in that book. So you might not see the exact same question, but that's not what matters. What matters is you're seeing the same types of questions. So you know exactly where to go to find the answers. And the simulator is kind of the keystone in the whole thing, right? Because it's going to time you, it's going to grade you. And there's enough questions in there for multiple unique attempts at it. So it's not just like you're going to, take it one time and now you know all the answers. So of course you're going to pass it the next time. The next time you're going to see different questions, right? So the simulator, by putting you on the clock, it really tests you on come exam day when all you got is the book. Can you get this done, right? And Michael will tell you in class. Michael's an instructor for the Georgia business. Michael will tell you in class, if you're taking the simulators and every time you take them, you're 80% or better, take the test with confidence, expect to pass the exam. Because that means you're recognizing the keywords, you're getting to the answer quickly, efficiently, you're using the tabs, you're using the highlights.
Great. Okay. Well, it sounds very manageable if you follow the system. So, assuming you pass the business exam, let's get on to the trade exam. Let's talk about the difference between the business and the trade exam. What can you expect? How many books approximately? What should someone expect here?
Right. So the big difference, right, is that business exam, you had one book, right? One book, it's the business subject matter. So maybe terms and concepts and things most folks maybe aren't as familiar with, where the trade's more of their day to day, but it's one book, right? Whereas trade exam, if you're doing residential basic, you got 8 books. If you're doing residential light commercial, you have 12 books. If you're doing full GC, you have 24 books. And the numbers of questions will change and the exact amount of time will change, but the time you have per question really doesn't change. No matter the exam, you still have just over 2 minutes a question, right? And
Hmm.
now you're going from worrying about finding the answer in one book in 2 minutes, some odd seconds, to 8 books, 12 books, 24 books, right? So that mastery of each book is key, right? And again, when we say mastery, we don't mean reading it cover to cover and being able to recite it off the top of your head. That's not what this is about. The way to think about it is each book or each section of each book, it's like a different spot on a basketball court. Okay. And how do you get good at shooting foul shots or making a shot from the elbow or the top of the key? You take your ball, you go out to the court, and you shoot your shot. And then you shoot your shot again. And then you do it over and over and over again until it's muscle memory. You can do it in your sleep with your eyes closed. That's how you become a master of these books, right? Repetition, practice, 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 practice with each book individually, right? Learning what keywords are coming out of what sections, what types of questions to expect from those sections of that book, and ultimately how to find the answers quickly, right? What Michael for the trade exam, also what Michael's going to go over with you in class, in addition to the techniques and things like that, is how to really recognize what that question is asking. Because I'm sure for many folks watching this, maybe they have real estate license or some other type of license, right? And they know that when you go to take these tests at PSI Exam Center, they ask you the questions worded in a way that no one has no one in their right mind in regular conversation would word that question that way, right? um so that's how we try to word our questions in our practice tests, our exam simulators, and kind of being able to decipher their nonsense talk, so to speak, is one of the things Michael makes a point of in class.
You're pretty specific about 60 hours of focus prep here. Um, what's the overall strategy with that? How would you break that up? And then also, if you can talk about, you have some tested patterns, break that down for us.
Absolutely. So, the 60 hours, where does that come from, right? Well, on one test you have 8 books, on one test you have 24, on one book you have 12, and everybody's different. So how do you get to 60 hours, right? 60 hours is obviously it's a general statement where if you devote 60 hours to any of these tests, you are going to pass. Is it possible to do it in less than 60 hours? Absolutely. But if, again, back to the 4 nights a week, because everybody's got a family, everybody's got work, so if you can do 4 nights a week, hour and a half a night in the self study, working on your practice tests, your exam simulators, and another night, that fourth night, either attending or watching the live class with Michael, you hit that for 60 hours, you'll pass every exam every single time. It's what we've noticed doing this over many years. That's what will work for everyone. Whether you're my little cousin cheerleader, probably never picked up a hammer before in her life, right? Or you're one of these guys who you drop them off in the woods with a hatchet, come back a week later, and you got a 6-bedroom house with indoor plumbing. That 60 hours will work for everybody. And to those test patterns, the OSHA book's a great example. So the OSHA book is one of those books where you get those like obtuse, like section 100.16.24.1.6, right? And when you're like, what does that even mean, right? But if you really look at it, those sections, they're following a sequence. So if you can master that sequence and you understand how those numbers go, it makes referencing that book very easy. And that's one of the things in our OSHA overview that we go through is how to reference. And the International Building Code and Residential Code is the same way. They give you those like obtuse, like it's a bunch of numbers with decimals. Understanding how those numbers work and that pattern makes referencing the books tremendously more efficient once you have an understanding of that pattern.
Great. Well, it sounds like if people follow your plan, you're giving them a great way to get things done and get licensed. And so, and I know that you told me it's worked for, hundreds and hundreds of contractors before in 2025. And so we expect the same in 2026.
No,
so,
one thing, I'm sorry, can we go back one second?
Sure.
One thing that I want to mention that I didn't mention that Michael will show you in class that is very, very important when you're taking these tests with 8 books, 12 books, 24 books is how to organize those books and having an overall system for referencing those books. Because back to that 2 minutes, some odd seconds a question. It's great if you know what section of the building code that answers in. But if your building code, it's under 18 more books, how do you even get there in that amount of time? So one of the things Michael teaches you is a very specific method for how to organize those books and take the test as efficiently as possible. Just wanted to get that out there.
Great. It sounds like a great method. I'm sure students would find it very beneficial. So again, thanks Andrew for sharing about how to get your Georgia contractor license in 2026. Andrew is available. He's always available to help you. We've got the information at the bottom of our screen here. And of course, if you call him, you mentioned this video, mentioned Georgia 2026. He's going to help you out, take 5% off whatever you get into. But Andrew, again, thank you. Anything else you want to say?
I love being here, Noah. Thank you so much for having me. And to the folks watching, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here to help. Any questions you have on the application, the exams, I'm here to help first. And I mean that sincerely. So please reach out to me. And if it's something you want to get started on, mention Georgia 2026 and we can make it a little more manageable.
All right, great. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
See you in the next video, everybody.